I'm Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Mike, and welcome aboard to our brand new podcast called Taking Off with Mike and Jen.
In this podcast, we will be diving in and unpacking all the baggage, anything from communication to finances, family dynamics, expectations, and what it looks like to fight or flight.
We have 32 years of marriage and a lot of Christian counseling under our belts. So no matter where you find yourself, whether that's being single, dating, engaged, or married, this podcast is just for you.
Are you ready to take your relationships to new heights?
If so, sit back, relax. We have been cleared for takeoff. How was sex before marriage discussed in your relationship?
How was it discussed?
How was it discussed in your relationship? And the follow-up is, what boundaries did you have or wish you would have had in place?
If you crossed any lines back then.
Because if you've listened to our podcast, you know exactly what we did and how jacked up it was.
Pure.
I was
pure before him even. So.
Let's just say that we were very attracted to each other.
Yeah.
A lot of chemistry.
Definitely.
Natural,
Could not keep my hands off her. So, yeah.
So were you guys were you walking the walk at that point?
Yeah,
I think that's where so many young people back away from the Lord because they feel like I've made a mistake. I'm not worthy to come back in.
Because they messed up.
Yeah.
So to speak.
And we messed up.
Oh, yeah. Let's be
I'm not going to lie. We were engaged. I mean, we were together 3 years before we got married.
Yeah.
And
3 years. Okay.
yeah.
And you were walking with Christ.
Yeah.
both of us.
And so it was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out because you wanted what you wanted, but you're not giving up on your faith.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
and that's why so many, even young people that I taught to, they're not willing to give up what it would require when all he's saying is come as you are.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And, I'm not saying it's right, but we were together 3 years and I don't know if we set boundaries.
It sounds like you didn't. And that's,
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, it wasn't something that was
No, it wasn't crazy. It wasn't
common.
yeah.
And I remember the last few months, we are not even going to kiss. Remember, I was like, we cannot even kiss. All of a sudden, I was like, Virgin Mary, and we are not going to kiss, and we're going to, So, but I was very, if I did something wrong, I was very like, oh my gosh, my mom would, because my mom, I'm not kidding.
She knows.
She was an angel though. Like she really was. And I
didn't feel guilty. I'm terrible. I was like, I knew I wanted to marry her. It was just like, I just need to get enough money. I need to raise enough money to be able to.
We were just poor.
Yeah.
We were struggling too. So we were just ready to get married.
I mean, that is terrible, but I mean, it was crazy. I saw her come out of a restaurant and I knew she was the one. She was with, I knew some of the people she was with. My sister-in-law knew her. They'd kind of grown up together. And so I'm like, who's that? And they're like, oh, that's Sharon's daughter. And I was like, Sharon's daughter? I knew her sister years. I knew her sister years before I even saw her.
Because
she went to school with her brother.
Yeah, with my brother. And we'd come over to the house and play with my brother, JJ.
No way.
Yeah. And so I knew Gina real well. I knew Sharon. And then all of a sudden,
Who's
this? Where'd she come from? She was dating somebody else too at the time.
So let me ask you this in regards to those boundaries, which you don't seem to care about.
No, we do. We did. We did. Honestly, we really. I'm just saying we weren't perfect. That's
No.
I'm just being honest. I mean,
no. I realize that, but how did you then raise your kids? Like the decisions that you made growing up, looking back at them, whether it was before you two got together and the bad decisions you made, or even the decisions that you wish during your relationship, even though, grace fills those dumb things you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you look backwards and now you're in the position of raising kids, how does that play out?
I mean,
right?
for me, it was like, I knew when they got alone, certain place, I knew they were related to me. So I was like, that's big trouble already. I mean, so I think even this is really bad, but even Caleb, his senior year, good looking guy. He was very charismatic. Girls loved him. I'm like, man, this is bad. I'm like, don't get anybody pregnant, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that's terrible to say as a Christian man. I mean,
Well, but that's the biggest fear at that age.
Are you not honest with them? You know what I'm saying?
We're very honest. I will say that. We're very, very, from the time they were
little,
very
we talked
open.
about everything with them. And they were asked
and
tons
of course
questions.
we express, you know, the God way is the best way. I mean, it really is. And, you know, our mistakes don't need to be carried on, you know.
Yeah.
But there's also a point where, having done all stand, and we've raised them to not, I mean, really godly home. They were in church all the time. Everything, I expressed my feelings about drinking, drugs, really, they didn't grow up around alcohol in the home or anything. But then there's a time where they're out of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like you gave them, because they're great kids, it sounds like you gave them great advice, great godly wisdom, but then you wanted them to understand, if there's a screw up, if there's a thing, we love you, and it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is so great that a lot of Christian parents and families don't tell their kid. It almost, they feel like as adults that then they're giving their children a pass to go do stuff.
Right.
And you're not.
No.
We did that with our kids. We're like, look, this is what we believe, and it's because it's in the Bible, and this is how it has served now us in the future, and people who were way better than us. But
I mean, were you guys, we were very
happens.
affectionate in front of our kids, to be honest with you.
oh yeah,
I mean, and I think it's a very healthy thing that
sure.
a dad, I mean, your kids see the dad slap your mom on the butt, give her a big hug, kiss her, you know, shut the door. They know what's you know, Kenzie used to stick her little fingers underneath the door and do this number. I was like, oh, but I mean, I think we tried to create a very healthy environment for them. I think a lot of Christian homes set the bar. Yeah. Do we want to set the bar high? Yeah. But sometimes it's like, no, that's not obtainable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's be real, you know? And I think, I mean, in some ways, you know, it sticks sometimes, and other times, you know, there was a few times where, you know, when the kids would be like, "Hey, I'm meeting such and such girl at the lake," and I'm like, "No, you're not."
Yeah.
You know, I know what you're going to do.
right.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean, Dad? I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
I've been there. You know, it's just like it's the same game.
Oh yeah.
It's just different
4
players.
years later.
Yeah.
They just look at the parents and be like,
Like we didn't
How'd
do
you
it. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
were
"It's your
like,
parents, gross."
Yeah.
Gross.
Yes.
Same exact thing.
Yes.
It's a cycle that repeats every 20
Yeah.
years.
I
It's
think
not going to end.
The biggest thing I've learned is, this sounds so maybe cliche, but I just, as a parent, doesn't matter how old they get, but I pray, especially in the world we're living in now, like a covering over them like I never have before. And my grandbabies, I'm already like,
Yeah.
you know, we've raised them right. And I think my greatest thing with Caleb that I learned was, you know, how could I have saved him, or how could I have, but it was out of our hands, you know, and we know in our heart he was raised right.
Mm-hmm.
He knew right from wrong, but there's decisions, you know, that you make in a, you know, thing. And I tell people, you know, my kids, you make a mistake, it's a mistake, but it can become a habit,
Mm-hmm.
you know, an addiction. So.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that leads us segue into our next question.
Well, I want to say one thing before we
Okay.
get into the next question. So before we leave this topic of sex or anything that is in the Bible, the point that I think so many people miss or don't emphasize enough is the Bible and the rules in the Bible. Rule.
Yeah.
No, it's called protection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why do you not want to have sex before marriage? Well, how
Yes.
about the things that can happen if you do?
Exactly.
You can have a baby. You can have diseases. You can hurt someone terribly
Yes.
bad.
Yeah.
What have they been through? You can look back when you're married to your spouse and have these stupid freaking memories of the things that you did that you
Yes.
wish, I wish I didn't
That's
even
what-
have that
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my
visual
brain.
picture
Yeah.
in my mind.
I mean, he did
That's the
set it
reason
for
why
us.
we're saying
Yes.
maybe don't do this because you're going to get shocked. Don't do
Yes.
this because it's going to get cut.
Yeah.
Don't do this. Those are just rules. Yeah, but I'm trying to protect you from something.
Exactly.
And
That's what I always tell
it
them.
really is they're protections. It's not just a rule
Yeah.
just to make your life
And I
miserable.
said, don't make the mistakes we made. Use,
Right.
it's like I look back at my childhood. I don't want to make the same mistakes my parents made,
Right.
you know?
You
It's
I
to
said
think
protect them.
communication though too. I think
Huge.
Being
if we would
open.
have had better communication, and there wasn't. I don't think Christians really communicated that.
You
But
didn't
you
talk
heard it
about
for the
stuff like that.
pulpit. You really didn't hear it. But that's where
not like today.
No.
that's where the dad needs to sit. Hey, I see you with the new girlfriend. She's real cute. But
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what you're thinking, and this is going to
Yeah.
gross you up, but I'm going to tell you because I was your
Yes.
age, and how about this, and here's what
And it
potentially
doesn't
can
change.
happen,
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah,
Exactly.
and you got a Y in the road, and you need to make these decisions,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And they may make the wrong decision, 100%, because we're humans.
Yes.
That's what we do.
But I don't
Here's
think the
right and wrong.
conversation is happening very often. I think that's
No.
The conversation needs to happen more often.
Yeah.
Well, they're
100%.
finding too much of the conversations on social media instead of their parents,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
and the family.
And the experience, the
Yes.
true experience of what has gone
Yeah.
right and wrong.
Mhm.
I just want
Absolutely.
them to know, hey, what you've done is not too big to come back. His
course.
grace is sufficient. That's
Yeah.
what I would
100%.
probably be my voice today is his grace. There's nothing compared to the presence of the Lord.
Mhm.
I mean, we have a couple friends who've their kids have had children before they were married, and it was a testimony to watch them handle it.
Yeah.
Wow. Neat.
Like we're here,
Mhm.
we're going to stand with you in
Right.
this,
Yeah.
because the kid completely fearful.
Sure.
Like, what's going to
Oh,
happen
yeah.
next? I'm not ready for this, and to watch a friend of mine basically tell his son like,
It's
"We
okay.
got you. It's going to be
Mhm.
okay."
Yeah.
That right there changed that young
Yeah.
man's life.
Oh yeah, and he's
Could have gone so.
this kid now is he's doing very well, and he's got several more kids, and it's amazing. But if the father had just like crushed him at that
Oh.
moment, like he already knew.
Mhm.
Like
He's
I had a
beating
dream.
himself up already.
Yeah, I had a
probably.
dream about Caleb one time, and it was I've only had like I don't know, maybe one or two, but he was like 16. It was weird, and he walked in the room and he was just bawling his eyes out, and he was just apologizing. And the only thing I could say to him was, "Doesn't matter. It just doesn't." But the fact that we're here now,
Mhm.
that's all that matters.
Yeah.
There was a mistake, and it's like, can we show that same kind of grace that God shows?
Mhm.
So that leads us into this question. And so your perspective on what you're going to talk about now is going to be something that we haven't experienced. And so many people have experienced what you're going to talk about. And that is what life event has impacted your marriage the most. And then what advice, what positive advice, what faith advice can you give in regards to what you had to go through?
So tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind sharing
Oh,
that.
no,
I know
absolutely. That's our testimony.
know.
Painful testimony. We lost our son, Caleb. He was away at KSU. February 10th of 2016. Doesn't seem like it's been 8 years. It seems like yesterday, but yet so long. That's the thing about grief,
Mhm.
loss.
And you have two other children.
Two other children.
Three
So
total.
Caleb was the oldest, and then we have Mackenzie and Micah.
Okay.
And Caleb was 6'4", whatever, and a talented, musically talented, gifted kid. Lit up the room. He was at North Balding. He was voted most likely to win an Oscar. He just had that personality. I mean, everybody loved Caleb, and Caleb was the one that would go play his guitar with the homeless person. He would give the shirt off his back to somebody or give them all his money, and then he'd call us and say, "Mom and Dad, can I get some money?" So basically, we gave him. No,
Love it.
it just a genuine. I mean, he was my firstborn, and he was a little model, just a doll. And we knew Caleb at times, would party too much at college, and we were very vocal. Caleb and I would have some knockdown dragouts because I did not party. I did not allow it in our home, or anything, but he was a magnet, and he could also be drawn to things that weren't right, but he would also be at church the next week with his hands raised, crying his eyes out, God forgive me. The most genuine, tender heart. But on February 10th, Matt was really busy with All Stars at work, crazy busy. Like it couldn't have been a busier season of his life. And we got a call. No, I was working at Love Street. It used to be Love Street. I think that's where we met.
It is.
Yeah. And then I just said, she has good taste. We're going to be. She was buying some Christmas stuff, boy. That cha-ching.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've talked about money podcast before.
I've gotten so much better.
But anyways, and I just felt peaceful. We were getting ready to go to Santa Rosa or somewhere the next week. It was February break. And I left at 3:00, got in my car to call Caleb, and it went directly to voicemail. And I thought, oh, that's weird. I texted him because Caleb always called me by 10 or 11, always. But that day, I was ministering to somebody else that I met there that had lost her sister-in-law through cancer. And I was just thinking, God, you're so good. I remember stopping, it's in the book that I wrote, but stopping in the middle of the store going, God, you're so good. Not knowing a few hours later what I would find out. And we won't talk too much, but I finally got a hold of his friend. I said, Caleb's not answering, his roommate. He said, I just got home from work. Let me go check. And then he came back and said, he's not breathing. He's not breathing. And at that moment, I can say about 3:15, our lives changed forever. Yeah. Nothing will ever be the same. I was trying to get to where Caleb lived. He lived off of 285 over by Rays on the river. And I was trying to get a hold of my husband to say, and he would not answer of all days. And I'm pounding on the car, could not remember how to get to Caleb. I could not remember even how to get on the highway. Like I could not remember, but I was driving. Finally, Matt answered. I said, Matt, Caleb's not breathing. And he hung up. And then I was trying to get a hold of my sister to get a hold of Micah because I did not want Micah to come home. Because Caleb's friends he had friends everywhere. And I knew the minute it would just be out there. And I pulled up and I thought, there's a chance he's still alive. I'm still praying, crying out to God. He's still going to, this can change. This can change. And Matt, I had to get into the gate and a girl she could tell I'd been crying. She said, do you need to go in? I said, yes. And Matt was at the gate for the apartments where the code is. And he said, he's gone. And that was when our lives changed. And you can't explain the loss of a child. I've lost a lot of people, but to lose a child and to lose your son suddenly, there was no warning, nothing. Yeah, no except for 2 weeks before that, there were things that I look back on. And he said, Mom, in our kitchen, leaning up against the counter, I'm going to make you so proud. And I said, if you never do another thing a day in your life, I'm proud of you. It was like God allowed me to have those moments with Caleb. And Caleb was my buddy. I mean, we were buddies. We fought hard, but we loved very hard. And my life changed. And I think if anything, I thought that would be the hardest thing on our marriage. But I feel like God rejoined us back together in a different way. Because when you see your husband laying on the grave and he's crying out to God, it can either turn you, but we joined together because so many people would say you're going to get a divorce is very, like people would say, you got to be careful with your marriage. Divorce happens more when you lose a child than anything. But I think it drew us together because even greater, because we're sharing such a deep love and deep hurt together that nobody else could ever feel that with me like a husband. It doesn't mean we grieve the same now. There'll be times I'm grieving and I'm having a hard day and he may not be in that space or vice versa. But it actually made me love you more because I saw how we knew there was nothing that could ever fill that void, but we knew who to call on. And it was the grace of God. In the midnight hours, we weren't calling out for Buddha or anybody, but God. We would say, God help us, God help us, God help us. And the wails and the groans that come out of grief, of loss, to see my daughter, to have to call her in LA and say, you got to get home, honey. She goes, Mom, I'm at the beach. Can I call you back? I said, no. We lost your brother. And she was screaming at the top of her lungs. They said her friends that flew back were there on the airplanes. She was just screaming. And then our Micah just laying on the floor. But through that pain, God has done so much. So much. Looking back, I'm like, how did I make it? I used to be the mom that would say, if I lose a child, just go ahead and take me. Just go ahead and take me because I'm going to die. But I didn't. And the grace of God that was what I would say to everybody is whether you're depressed or whether you're suicidal or whatever it is you think, I can't make it. I'm telling you, hold on to the grace of God. Call out his name. It doesn't matter. Still to this day, I'm like, I'll walk around and say, I'll get that punch in my stomach, like your son's gone. I'll say, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. There's just nothing that can substitute. It would have been easy to go to alcohol and drink myself to sleep every night.
People were offering her pill. I remember people offering pills. And,
like I said, you know what? I got to learn to deal with this for the rest of my life. So I got to deal with it. But that's where I think we think that alcohol or something will fill that void, but it doesn't. You wake up and
prolongs it.
It's still there. Yeah. He's still going to be gone. You can't bring it back. But there's nothing that you can't prepare for it.
No.
But I will say this. What I learned all those years through my mistakes, through divorce, through all those things is that I saw my mom call on God, and that's who we called on.
Yeah. I mean, it's just such a tough subject, the first night is the worst for anybody who's lost a child. It's horrible. And like Ron just, like the Bible talks about, when the Pharaoh, not Pharaoh, but one of the kings, I forget his name now. He's not worthy, I guess. When they slaughtered all the babies. Oh. And it talked about the wailing of the mothers. Yeah. And that's what it's like. I mean, groans, like not earthly groans. And I remember my brother Jeff called me before I went to sleep. He's like, hey, I can get in the car and come over right now. And I probably should have said yes. And I didn't. And I got into bed. I went to bed that night with all my clothes on, my shoes on, everything. You're just like in such a, there's no way to describe it. The pain is so great. But first thing in the morning, this kid shows up.
Yeah.
This black kid shows up at the door. I've never seen him before. Never heard Caleb talk about him. Now, granted.
And we haven't seen him since.
Yeah. And Caleb had tons. I mean, he had lots of friends. People were all constantly coming in and out of the house. And this kid said, I just want to tell you, Mr. Lucas, I'm so sorry, but Caleb used to protect me in the bus every day.
Golly.
He said I was bullied.
Yeah, I was bullied. And he was the only one that stood up for me. And then he said that, and then he left. He was gone. And then, I mean, it was just like, okay, this was so random, and it's just like, oh, that's great. Never hear from this kid ever again. Ever. Haven't heard from him ever again. And then, you have the viewing, and Ron was like, I can't do this. And luckily Tara and John came from Honduras, and they were a huge help in us just carrying us through this thing. But Ron was like, I can't stay here for this viewing. I said, well, at least stay. Let's just go in as a family, see him, and then you can just go. And when we came out when the doors opened up, the whole inside of the funeral home was packed. And there was a line around the building a couple of times from people, from all his friends. And it was just like, oh, I guess we're not going anywhere. And that went on for hours until the funeral people basically said, listen, we got to cut this off. You need to go home. You got the funeral tomorrow. And so it's just grace just constantly being poured out on us. Then the funeral, starts off, and my stepmom Shirley and my brother and sister are begin to sing, and Rhonda sitting on the front row stands up as soon as they hit the first note, stands up with her arms raised
and surrender.
I can still hear all the other people getting up.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes one person
to
have the courage. And then the rest of the people stood up. And at that point, it became a worship service. Mm-hmm. And people at work were asking me, it's like, is this what church is like? Because if this is what it's like, I want to come. And we had
Jeez.
I mean, it was packed. The whole church was, and then we gave an altar call basically at the end, and kids came down, we prayed over them, and it's we've had crazy little miracles after miracles kind of happen. Sometimes I think these are angels. One of the Caleb's Cup the first Caleb's Cup thing we did for just kids. Like, we didn't charge anybody anything. We had food trucks, we had ice cream, drinks, t-shirts, all kinds of stuff. And we were having a concert and a speaker at Cedar Crest. And Cedar Crest was amazing and opening it up for us. And it started at 7. At 5 to 7, it was me, Micah, and a couple of his buddies, our family. And so we got all this food, and I just told Mike, I was like, well, I guess we're going to be eating for the next few hours, I'm like, and I had gone to the schools. I had contacted a lot of the athletes, asking them to come and stuff like that. And this girl came up to me as people started kind of trickling in. And she goes, don't worry, Mr. Lucas. Everybody knows about it. They're all coming. Mm-hmm. I've asked at every event, hey, who is this girl? Mm-hmm. Please make yourself known, because
don't know who.
So every podcast I've done, every time I've got up and spoke, I ask about the same girl, and nobody knows. It was full, and believe me, we knew most of the kids just for the simple reason our kids were there, and I invited one particular football player to come, and I didn't think he would come. But he came, and that night he went home after the event and woke his mom up at midnight and said, Mom, I just want to tell you, I'll never be the same.
Wow.
So it's, the grace has been and it hasn't stopped either. Let me tell you, it has not stopped at all. And the community, I mean, obviously our families were very important to us, but they were grieving as well. Mm-hmm. And that's where the Bentwater community was. I mean, we had certain friends. I mean, Tim and Stacy, we couldn't open up our own home. Of course, people were coming to see you, and Stacy would get at the house at 6:30 in the morning and open up our house, make coffee. I mean, she did that for 10 days.
Yeah. Grief is funny. Your house is full of people and you don't even remember their names. But through that, God's faithfulness. I mean, we've had Caleb's Cup Foundation that is going on, what, 20 years?
It's 9, because we did it actually.
We did it the year he died, so even though he's only been gone 8, has been able to help so many people. Yeah. I mean, we don't keep
and it's not something we started. No, it was our friends. Ben Houston and Joe Fitzpatrick.
But we don't make money off of it or anything. But this year alone, it's so weird because it's kind of going back to my growing up single. Single moms right now are calling me, I can't, I'm going to get evicted. And I'm like, I wish I could pay your mortgage. I can't, but I can go give you groceries. And we're helping people. And it reminds me of what Caleb would do, because that's how he was. And it's obviously, I need to address the issue of he died from one laced pill that was packaged as a pain pill because he got a tattoo that night and it was laced with fentanyl. And now it's almost like it happened to Caleb, and now it's just.
It's true. Like he's the first one I heard of about and fentanyl. And now it's the
hundreds and hundreds. Yes. And it's
ridiculous. Daily,
find out somebody died, of, now it's in weed. Kids think
Yeah.
weed's okay. It's laced, you
It's in
know.
everything.
So that is our message, you know, just once,
Yeah.
one choice, whether good or bad, affects not only just you. That's what I learned. My decisions don't just affect me, you know, they affect my family. They affect,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
Great
and I know,
point.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I know Caleb loved
He loved life.
and he loved
loved
his
life.
family. But it wasn't an intentional thing, but he made a bad choice,
Yeah.
a really bad choice, and trusted somebody that he shouldn't have trusted.
You know, some of the wonderful things that Rhonda, we've had lots of experiences with people that she was definitely more open to it than I was, as far as like being led by the Lord or the Spirit just leading her. We're in the grocery store and I'm in line paying for something and she has this look on. I'm like, oh, dang, man, I've seen this look before. She's got something under her sleeve. So I pay for mine. She's like, wait. I'm like, what? What's going on? You know, a little bit of that sarcasm. And I was like, she goes, we're going to pay for their groceries. And so I'm like, all right, give me the card. So we pay for the groceries. And, you know, you just basically swipe it,
Yeah.
you walk out. You just, you know,
Right.
you don't want to talk or anything. You just want to do it and get out of there. And so all of a sudden a buddy of mine calls me. He's like, hey, your card, it didn't work. You put the wrong pin in.
Yes.
What?
So I didn't know the pin. So she told it to me. So it's kind of funny because when I walked out, when I walked out, I was like, oh, we should have given him some cash too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I run back in there. Thank God he called me and run back in there, swipe it, have him, you know, take out a bunch of cash as much as I did and gave him the cash as well. And so at that point, you know,
then you're
we're like,
stuck talking to them.
yeah. Well, no, we walk away. They're still putting on the groceries.
Okay.
And it was a grandmother and a young mother, probably 18. And she came out and ran and she grabbed Rhonda. Oh,
Yeah.
It's awesome.
like just burying her head into her chest and just sobbing. And it's like,
and the Lord just put it on your heart.
yeah.
Yeah, I will say this. Caleb was very aware of people's needs. Like one thing, to a fault at times, he would believe so much in somebody else that he didn't, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm just very aware because so many people are hurting and so many people look like they have it all together. You look at social media and you're like, you know, okay, take for instance Mackenzie. She's my daughter, of course, but she's beautiful and you look like, you know, you look at her stuff and her beautiful daughter and family. She has it all together. They don't know the story that she lost her brother and that she, you know, used to model and would get told no all the time. You're too
You're
fat.
too
You're
pretty.
too this. You're too that.
She's
You know,
this big.
people think you look at something and you think, oh, their life is perfect, but they don't see
Yeah.
the tears.
True life.
And yes,
Real.
like, so social media makes it all look good and it's pretty but I'm looking at families and I'm like more aware, like, what are they struggling with? Or you can see there's just something they're lacking or,
Yeah.
you know, maybe they went out to eat tonight, but maybe they really couldn't afford it, but they wanted a break. So we'll like
Yeah.
pay for their meal. We did that recently.
We did that recently. We were at the beach. It was, I mean, they walked in and they had like,
Oh yeah.
they had like 5 or 6
30
kids.
kids.
Yeah.
I was like, and they could barely even fit all in the booth,
Yeah.
you know? And so we just paid for their meal and you just leave. One of the coolest stories was Micah and Donna just had Haven. And Micah called us and was like, hey, can you guys come? And you know how you bring so much stuff. Can you bring some of this stuff? We're not leaving till tomorrow. And we're in the car and Rhonda's like, she goes, I just feel like God's going to do something with us today. And I was my typical self. Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. You know,
Spending money again.
and so we're walking out with all this stuff. You know, we got pillows and suitcases and all that stuff. And the elevator door's about to shut. And we get in there and the door's shut. And this lady is laying hands on this other lady and just going to town. I mean, she is just praying over this girl and this girl is sobbing. So we just went right into it. We just like jumped right in the river with them and we're like with her and
She was pregnant, but she was going to lose the baby.
something was wrong. But this lady was pouring into her like it was the last time she was ever going to pray. And all of a sudden, this is the funny part. The elevator's going up, the doors are opening, and nobody's there, and it shuts, and she's still praying, and it comes back down. It's just going up and down, and nobody's getting in the elevator. And then when she finishes, she gets out, and she, she's like, feels free. She's a different person.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then this other lady gets out of the elevator. We're trying to get our stuff together, and she's like, I don't know, 25 feet in front of us, and she starts crying. And Rhonda's like, are you okay? And she's like, no. She goes, my faith is wavering. I just lost my 3-year-old granddaughter or son.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And so then we ended up praying for her. And it's just like, wait, I could have sworn you were the lady with the most faith and the biggest prayer I'd ever heard a moment ago.
She was praying for somebody else, but she was suffering.
But somehow God had given her an anointing at that moment.
Wow.
It was beautiful.
And then she walked away, and then she felt like she was alone for some reason.
And you guys were there purposefully.
It's funny to be on the outside and not to be able to feel what you guys feel, but for me to say, what's the lesson I'm learning out of this from what you guys have been through? And I'm not trying to encourage, I'm just saying this is what, because I don't know, like you said, till you go through it, you don't know. I don't know what it feels like. But I'm thinking to myself, they have helped way more gobs of people because of what they have gone through than they ever would have. Probably.
Oh yeah,
So as far as to the glory of God, then I think, well, why did a perfect Christ die? Because he helped so many people. And so the tragedy makes no sense.
No.
It's just the dumbest thing ever, but that's how it works. Because honestly,
really does.
But from the perspective of, well, at least I want to see something out of this. It's just gobs and gobs of just unbelievable goodness.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think too, a testimony.
It's a sacrifice, like one you don't want to give.
No. Yeah.
You essentially you did what God did with his son. You experienced that. You experience it now.
Yeah.
And yet so much good has come out of it. But yet you would like, well, I want to turn that around.
I didn't choose this.
No.
It's unbelievable. It is.
Really, sometimes I look like, God, you're trusting me with this pain, And he has been, I can't say enough about the Lord, because I am so completely, what it did to me was because I used to be like, I can handle this. I've got control, a little bit of control freak, wanted to fix things. And now I'm like, I'm completely and totally dependent upon him. If that's anything I could stress to young people or anybody, become so completely dependent on him that nothing else will satisfy you.
Right.
Because it didn't matter that Matt was right by me in the night. It didn't matter who was in my house. It had to be between me and God, because Matt couldn't fix it. Yeah.
Same with you, Matt.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the first 2 years, every morning in the shower, I'd get in there and sob and just speak in tongues. I didn't know what to say. Mm-hmm. I literally there was nothing.
Yeah, you would hear him. He was more of in the shower.
Yeah, I didn't want them to hear me sobbing and and then you jump in the car, then you drive an hour and you sob the whole way to work. And so, it was
and that's something
complete
now,
dependency.
At the beginning, you want your other kids to know, hey, life's going to go on. We're going to make it, Yeah. But so you go in your showers and you cry and you weep. And when Micah would go away to school, because Kenzie was living in LA, I would weep the whole day, but then I'd have dinner for him,
Right.
And you're like, okay, God, you're going to have to do it, because I don't have the strength to do it. Because the meals stop. And the people go on with their life, and they're supposed to. You want that.
Yeah.
Right.
But all of a sudden, you're left alone to deal with your everyday life.
Normal life.
And he had to go back to work. And
well, thanks for sharing that.
We really appreciate your
thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's amazing how, they're hard. These are hard.
Oh,
it's very emotional. I think
you hold it in.
I hold it in. Then when I get on something like this, it's like, it's very difficult. There was a time where I was like, Lord, I can't share this. If
If you're falling.
Yeah, I just can't. And, and most of the time it's not the pain of Caleb. I think it's the grace of God. It's like, why would you do this for me?
That's amazing.
Wow.
You know, what a testimony you guys.
I think if there's one other thing, and it was somebody asked me the question a while back. It was about the border and the fentanyl pouring over, and they're like, "What can we do about this?" And I said, I know how to fix it. I said, you've got to get to young people and tell them who they really are and whose they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. They've lost their identity. They have no idea who they are in Christ. You know, that God would decide to not only create them, but then to create them in his image and his likeness. And I think if you got that to them, the fentanyl is not a problem.
No, you're right.
Because I'm like, I know who I am.
Yes.
This is, it's like you were saying early about this law and that law. They're to protect us. Why does God hate sin so much? Because he knows it's going to kill us and destroy us. Yeah. And he wants to protect us. You know, it's like one time somebody told me, I think it was John told me, he said, you know what the 10 Commandments are? They're the character of God. Mm-hmm. That's who he is.
They're there for a reason.
Yeah.
It shows you his character. You know, of course, they all are the laws, but it's who he is. Yeah. And it's like you abide by those laws and you're going to live a great and fruitful life. Is there going to be ups and downs? Most definitely. Yeah. But you know what? They're all purposeful.
Yep.
And they're all to
God uses it for his glory.
Exactly.
For those who love, I mean, I will say it does say that one little part for those who love him, and we love him. And so I did I know, babe, I'll stop. But there's this one thing I've been watching some stuff on Azusa Street and William Seymour, who was the pastor of the Azusa Street movement. And I think in watching his character, this guy, every situation he was put in was never the perfect situation. He went to Bible college and they accepted him there, but because he was black, he had to sit outside. But he never complained. Never complained. Every situation he went out to California they hired him as a pastor. He preached the first message on the Holy Spirit and they locked him out of the church. But he never complained. He was grateful. Everything was an opportunity for him instead of being like, oh man, this sucks. You know, I can't believe this. It's like he had a completely different perspective on life, which
Gosh,
it's like, I wish I could do that.
Like I know.
Yeah. Wow. And then you look at what he did with Azusa Street. They say it was a 2-year revival that went on even a little longer, but they say, you know, it affected over 600 million people. Wow. And like 24 different denominations came out of that.
And it wouldn't have if he hadn't had the attitude that he had in the very, very beginning that you just talked about.
No,
it would have never happened.
When you heard people talk about him, they said he was the most humble man.
Wow.
You know?
Between your story, what you took from all that, learned from that story, I'm like, wow. I always know I have a lot of work to do still till the day he takes me, but my goodness.
Do. Oh, it's a daily
it's so
for me.
Good, but it's so good to have friends like you that are honest, though, that are really honest. Like, to be honest, like listening to the podcast on the way here, I mean, I'm like, I am very challenged, you know.
We're going to go through all of them now.
Yeah, I mean, no, because it's like
you want
the priority should be the marriage, and I hate to say, but sometimes I feel like the priority is the work.
Yeah, it's easy to get that way.
Traps are traps, right? I mean, they're easy to fall into.
Thank you both for
asking. We got a real quick ending deal here. We're calling this, because you know this is got an aviation theme with the pilot and turbulence and baggage. We're calling this how not to skid off the runway. All right? Best advice. You get 1 minute.
Wait.
1 minute or less.
5 questions, 1 minute or less. Best advice when dealing with social media usage.
Go.
Put it down.
What advice? Social media usage.
The thing is, there is some. We've seen some great things with Caleb's Cup. I know we've seen some great things with Caleb's Cup because when Rhonda has outreach to the community, wait, it's not 1 minute. It's 1 minute, 60 seconds. I've seen some great benefits to it.
Yeah.
There really is. And the community, when she reaches out, whether kids weren't going to graduate this year because they hadn't paid their dues, and there was $800 worth of dues, and within 10 minutes, it was all paid for.
So it just depends on how you use it.
Yeah.
Is what you're
I
saying.
mean, but listen, do I fall into the same trap and TikTok and all the other stuff and all that? Yes, I do. And basically, I probably should delete a lot of the apps.
Okay.
I just should.
Next. Best advice when dealing with family issues.
I say deal with it and then forgive them and laugh and go on.
Okay.
So let it go.
Let
That
it
was-
go.
Best advice with money.
Ooh, spend it.
Oh, guys.
YOLO.
But
Let's
wait,
go,
hold
Rhonda.
on.
Take
Rhonda,
the
let's go.
vacation. Take the vacation.
Spend it if you have it.
Sometimes it depends. I'm going to say this real quick.
Okay.
If we wouldn't have taken some of the vacations that we took with Caleb,
Yeah.
that maybe money was tight and we shouldn't have. I mean, those were some of the best
I
times ever.
understand, yeah.
Like you know,
Mhm.
I'm like, take the vacation. Even Tucker Carlson said, take the vacation.
I think faith plays a big part
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Is that you have to step out in faith and say, you know what, the family needs this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's number 5, best advice when
good.
dealing with faith.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have great examples of parents that have shown us ridiculous faith, like faith that I don't know if I'm capable of obtaining, but I've seen it happen, like
Well,
crazy stuff.
I when you just
Sorry.
said you don't know if you're capable of having it, there's zero way that's 100% false because of what you've already been through
my
and the
gosh,
testimony that you guys have given over the last 9 years. That is just faith. That's a giant faith ball. Right
You just
there.
don't
Yeah.
see it, Matt.
Yeah.
You may
sometimes
not.
we don't
That's
feel it.
a
We feel
total
Sure.
1,000% faith.
we feel
Yeah.
beaten down, but
Absolutely. That is it.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Well, we cannot tell you enough how we've loved having our seasoned
oh,
friends
we are
as our
honored.
second couple
And thank
guests.
you both.
Yes, our good crew, right?
You're so cute. I love it.
And we just, we appreciate your vulnerability and just being real. And I know that not only did we learn things, I know that whoever's listening learned something too, and we appreciate it. And because this is a sort of a fake travel podcast, we thought we'd bring you a little something as our guest to thank you for coming. So I know you like Kona coffee.
Oh, yes.
100% pure.
Oh, Lord. That'll be brewing today.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
You are the cutest thing.
Enjoy.
That's awesome.
Take us out,
sweet.
babe. Take us out.
Oh, me?
Come on, sweetie.
Oh, man.
You got the mic.
Okay. I don't know how to do that thing you do. No, you do it. You do it.
Oh, that's
You know that,
cute.
that thing, that whatever it is.
I just
Yeah.
say gear down, clear to land, which is like and subscribe. Stay with us.
Yes.
Follow us. Send it out to your friends.
Just trying to help others.
We're trying to help others. So thanks for joining us on flight number
16.
16,
Bye,
and we will see you next time. Bye bye.